It's fight week, baby, and it's a Canelo fight week. Mexican fans are some of the best fans in the world, if not the best boxing fans in the world. And we got both sides Mexican. We got Canelo, we got Munguia. Vegas is going to be red hot.
It's always a big week on Cinco de Mayo weekend, no matter where you are. But a boxing weekend in Vegas on Cinco de Mayo doesn't get any better than that.
I am so glad that Cinnamon Canelo changed his mind when he said he would never fight a Mexican. This makes this week better than ever. 2 Mexicans in there for the pride of Mexico. Let's go.
Viva Mexico. It's going down on Deep Waters right now. And welcome into Deep Waters, where we take a deep dive into all things boxing. It is Cinco de Mayo weekend since 2006. Oscar de la Hoya, Floyd Mayweather, Canelo Alvarez have given us big fights as boxing fans to look forward to. The question this weekend, is it the right opponent? Is it big enough? Will it decide the future of Canelo Alvarez? Jimmy Smith alongside Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri. Gentlemen, to get it started, when you look at this fight, of course, to the Atlas joining us by Zoom, when you get this fight started, Jaime Munguia, not the biggest name, offensively great, defensively suspect. Is he the right guy to get fans excited about a Mexico versus Mexico showdown this weekend?
I think so. I like this fight. Listen, I'm not even going to go into who Canelo should be fighting, but in terms of this weekend, Cinco de Mayo, Mexico versus Mexican, yeah, Jaime Munguia is a budding star. And he's one of those guys, and I say this over and over again, he's been preparing his whole life for this event. You know, people are asking me, is it going to be too much for him? Is this a bridge too far? I don't think so. I think he's ready for this opportunity. He's got a ton of experience. He's got over 40 fights. He's looked better and better every fight recently. He's recently hooked up with Freddy Roach, who, man, he's a wild card, pun intended, because he's from Wild Card Gym, obviously. But he brings a different level to the game that I think can really help Munguia out against, obviously much more well-known, more experienced Canelo Alvarez. But, man, that youthful exuberance is hard to overcome, especially as you get a little older. He's going to be bringing it, and I think he's going to be fully prepared with a great game plan, according to what Freddy Roach has been saying. So, yeah, I'm all for it. I've actually always liked this fight. I thought it was a great matchup. Canelo doesn't throw as many punches as he used to. Guess what? Munguia throws more punches than everybody. So let's get him in the ring together.
But you said it, youthful enthusiasm. Does Canelo have that anymore? What's on the line? A few performances, including an upset loss to Dimitri Bivol. We didn't see that coming. Paulie, when you look at this, what's on the line for Canelo with these performances that have been so-so in his last few fights?
When you get a little older, you don't have the youthful enthusiasm, but what you do have is the savvy ring generalship and the savvy veteran mindset. And what you do with that, when you're really, really savvy in that way, a lot of times the youthful excitement comes with an experience. And Munguia is an experience at this highest level can work against him. You make that youthful excitement walk into traps. And if it ends up walking into enough traps, possibly it slows down out of confusion and maybe out of trepidation and hesitation. So, if your vote here in this fight is for Canelo, it's that you're looking for Canelo to do those kind of things against the youthful excitement, the youthful enthusiasm of Jaime Munguia. And youthful enthusiasm isn't just a saying. I mean, when you're a fighter in your 20s, fighting at a world-class level, you're just getting there. You have that ferocity because you still have to accomplish everything, and you want to sort of absorb everything in front of you. You want to burn it up on fire. All the opposition in front of you. So I feel like Munguia's coming with that mentality. He's always had that mentality. Definitely, he's let's say top 5 super middleweight, maybe top 4 super middleweight. So it's a world-class fight.
Yeah, Teddy, when you look at this fight, the question I have for you is, Canelo's perception. And in boxing, perception is often reality. The perception that Canelo is slowing down, not as aggressive as he used to be, not the finisher he used to be. How does he combat that this weekend?
I got to start with Paulie, my man Paulie. They're both my men, but my man Paulie. Enthusiasms. I love it. That's the way you start. Enthusiasms. Just like the Untouchables, Robert De Niro. Enthusiasms. So important. What if you don't want to field? What if you don't want to do it? You just want to go up and hit. You got to be a team player. All right, I'll be a team player here. It's the young lion. I mean, what better than the young lion versus the old lion? I mean, what is a better setup? What is a better promotion? What is a better draw lead-in than that? That old vision, that old mantra, the young lion and the old lion. You know, does the young lion take his place? That's what this is about. You know, does the old lion, is his claws a little bit, you know, is he missing a couple claws? Is he missing a couple teeth? You know, is he a little slower? The young lion has the claws. He's got the teeth, but he doesn't have the experience. Yeah, he's got 42, 43 fights. I don't even know what it is, but not on this level. And he's still a work in progress. That tells you a lot. I'm telling you, he's a work in progress after 42 fights. Yeah, he's still a work in progress. His defense still has a long way to go. Things like that. And guess what? That is a negative, that you don't have good defense. But you know where it's a positive? For us, for the fans. Because if you're easy to hit and you find a guy like Canelo who can punch, and like Chris said, doesn't punch as much, but he still punches accurately and hard, and the other guy punches a lot, and he's not hard to find. That is the recipe for a damn good fight. I like guys, I shouldn't say it this way. As a trainer, I don't like guys to get hit too much. But as a fan, it ain't bad, baby.
You get to be a fan this weekend. Question for you, Chris. When you look at this, you know, what Teddy just said, oh, I'm the old lion, but I'm experienced. Is an experienced, tactful fight where he's, you know, like an aging Bernard Hopkins who was technical and tactical but didn't have a lot of knockouts, is that good enough for the fans on Cinco de Mayo? Is there pressure on Canelo to get a finish against a guy who's, you know, comparatively easy to hit?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why Munguia is in this fight. I think they see a lot of holes in the offense. You know, the lack of defense. Because listen, Munguia's defense is actually his offense. He's so aggressive. You know, he gets guys to shell up because the punches are always coming in bunches. But that's going to leave opportunities for Canelo in his sharp counterpunching. And I've said this before: the best version of Canelo beats Munguia, I think, pretty easily. But we haven't seen the best version of Canelo in a long time. And a lot of people are hoping that we get a vintage Canelo Alvarez performance this weekend. That's what I believe that, you know, Canelo camp is looking for. But, I mean, Munguia and Freddie, they got a different idea.
When we talk about vintage Canelo, what is vintage Munguia? Have we seen the best of Munguia yet? Are we still seeing a guy who is on the rise and has not yet reached his full potential? You know, he's rather young, right? I mean, he's getting there. Yeah, he's got experience. 27. Like Teddy said, he's got 42 fights, but he's still a work in progress. And somebody who's a work in progress like him, who has got all the potential, I think the matchup with Freddy Roach, the combination with Freddy Roach, can help him continue to ascend there.
What we'll do is we'll play a little Freddy Roach and talk about what Jaime Munguia needs to do to shock the world this weekend when we come back.
Wednesday Night Fights. On the next Wednesday Night Fights, May 8th, the UK's Robbie Davies Jr. takes on former IBF world champ Sergey Lipinets. Wednesday Night Fights.
That's right. You have Canelo on the 4th, Inoue on the 6th, us on the 8th. Do not miss it. So speaking of the showdown on the 4th, Cinco de Mayo, let's look at the Munguia side of things, what he needs to do. You talk about his physical talent. You talk about his aggression. You talk about his volume. But what he doesn't have is the resume. He doesn't have the big fight resume. Paulie, how does that show in big fights? You have the talent. You have some experience, but not big fight experience. How does it show in a fight?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, a Canelo fight is the biggest stage ever. I mean, there's guys who have big fights, and then the Canelo fight is still a different stage. And you can kind of see them, the anxiety in there when I remember Billy Joe Saunders, who was always so smooth boxing. I remember it was visibly so tight. He couldn't get his timing in there in that big stadium against Canelo. So even if you've got big fight experience, some of these guys have had, it's still a different experience when you fight your Canelos, your Mayweathers of the world and whatnot. Munguia has been in, I've been to Munguia fights. I mean, you've worked Munguia fights. The crowd is loud. I mean, I've been to the pond in Anaheim, I mean, where it's filled up and it's loud and vociferous, it's going crazy. So he's been in, you know, that kind of atmosphere when a big arena filled, loud, and all this stuff. But there's a different kind of pressure when you're fighting Canelo. It's the star of the moment. There's the burden on you to get a result because it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and you've got this one night to really get a result that changes things and the way you're viewed. It adds that extra pressure. And, of course, Canelo knows that about every single opponent that he's got in front of him, and he knows he has that mental edge. But from the other side, Canelo also has to deal with maybe everybody else being the most motivated they'll ever be to fight him. You know, so he's always got to be on his P's and Q's as well.
Chris, the question for you is, we're used to Mexico versus Mexico. In our generation coming up in boxing, that was everything, right? Morales, Barrera, I could name a dozen rivalries that really made boxing. What does Munguia have to do to make this fight one of those legendary showdowns?
I mean, listen, he's basically just got to be himself, and they got to bring in the new caveats that Freddy Roach brings to the table. You know, Champ, you made a great point about Munguia. You know, have we seen the best version of Munguia yet? I don't think so. He's an ever-improving fighter. So the guy who shows up on Saturday very well may be the best version of Munguia we've ever seen, or we've never seen. He could be that much better, and he could be a lot better than we really know. He's only 27 years old. We keep bringing that up. That's very, very young to get that shot against a guy like Canelo Alvarez. But not only does he have a shot against Canelo Alvarez, an all-timer, he's got a shot to become the face of Mexican boxing. This is Mexico versus Mexico, just like you said. He beats Canelo Alvarez. I mean, we have a bona fide star, Mexican star in Jaime Munguia. He's got a great style. He's fun to watch. He's young. He's got a long career ahead of him. He's got the look. I mean, everything. He's exciting as hell. I mean, so with a win over a guy like Canelo, I mean, Jaime Munguia and Oscar De La Hoya will be in the driver's seat for quite some time. So there's a lot riding on this. But honestly, I don't see it in Munguia to be the kind of guy who shrinks in these situations. I see him standing up to this. I see him growing. I see him looking at the legendary Mexican versus Mexican battles of the past and pulling from that so he can go out there and give the best effort that he can.
Teddy, as a coach in the corner, in the back room, right? You're getting ready, you're warming up. How do you get a guy mentally ready for this kind of stage? He's never been on before.
Control your imagination. Don't let the ninjas come over the wall because they will come. That is your greatest enemy. That's a great enemy than a fight. The anticipation and the thought process, the imagination of what can happen is always greater than the reality. Always. That is the greatest enemy of a fighter, especially in this situation for the first time, as both champions pointed out, for Munguia, where you don't allow your mind to go to the wrong places, imagining things that are unrealistic, that normally would not be in the realm of your thoughts. And that means that you got to be with them, not just in the locker room, the night before, where, you've had them in the right frame of mind, where fighters can lose it. They have lost it in the locker room. They have. I know fighters that have lost it during the walk, which can seem like a mile instead of, maybe 30 yards. The walk from the locker room to the ring, they can lose it. I remember one customer once said, it's like, and I know this is dramatic, but he said it's like going to the electric chair. It's that last walk. That is, the imagination must not be taking you to the electric chair. I mean, you've done it many times. So what do I do as a trainer? Remind them. Yeah, it's different, but remind them you've done this 42 times. This is not something you've never done. This is another fighter in there, another boxer in there. You've done it before. You've been successful 42 times. You will be successful 43 times. Do not allow your imagination to defeat you before you get in that ring. That is the key. That's the most important part. And part of it, the physical part, I would always get fighters up and walk around. Where you go to a hospital, what do you see the expecting father waiting for his first child? What is he doing? He's walking up and down the hallway because nature's telling him that motion relieves tension. I am not trapping my fighter into sitting there and just, with a towel on him, just standing there, not knowing what's going through his mind. No, I'm going to talk to him, and I'm going to let him get up, walk around, shadow box, move around a little bit.
And don't forget, of course, after the fight, our big fight breakdown. We'll break down every single aspect of the Cinco de Mayo card. Now, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Oscar De La Hoya back in the driver's seat, as we have been saying, looking for the triple crown of boxing. Can he do it? Welcome back to Deep Water's Competitive Fights. It's what we bring you on ProBox TV. That's what Oscar De La Hoya is looking for this weekend. Munguia versus Alvarez. Why? Munguía flies the Golden Boy flag in the United States as a U.S. promoter. Oscar De La Hoya is looking for the Triple Crown. What do I mean? Ryan Garcia upsetting Devin Haney. That was big for him. Virgil Ortiz, Jose Ramirez sweeping the Fresno doubleheader. Could he get it this weekend where Munguía comes out on top? What would that mean for Oscar De La Hoya and his brand? Paulie, it's got to be huge.
Well, I'll tell you what, it would be huge, but it's also, as we've been talking and discussing this, and Chris the Champ was talking about that, Munguía has a chance to make himself the face of Mexican boxing. I started thinking, Ryan Garcia sort of, I feel, made himself the face of boxing a couple weeks ago, right? With that huge win over Devin Haney. He was always one big win away from sort of being that new proverbial face of boxing. But also boxing is coming into a changing of a generation moment right now, And so you look at a guy like Virgil Ortiz, who could possibly be one of those changing of a generation stars. You look at Ryan Garcia, who's sort of the face of boxing now and is becoming the next generational star. Munguía has the chance to eliminate the former face of boxing completely with a win over him and catapult himself at his age as, again, one of the generational stars that's coming into the picture here. And, of course, talk about Oscar De La Hoya. He has Ryan Garcia, Virgil Ortiz, and Jaime Munguia under contract. And, of course, just for the soap opera effect, Canelo is his former fighter.
Everything together, pride on the line. Chris, what kind of comeback would this be for De La Hoya? The breakup with Canelo, a lot of people thought that maybe he's on the way down. The seeming breakup with Ryan Garcia, looks like they patched things up, but right now money will do that. So what kind of comeback would it be for Oscar De La Hoya, promotionally speaking?
Well, Champ, you mentioned generational star. Oscar De La Hoya was a generational star. Like, he was obviously his nickname is the Golden Boy, but literally he was the Golden Boy of the sport. He was the money guy. He was the guy everybody tuned in for. He was the crossover star. He was the one that,
he was the Olympic gold medalist.
Olympic gold medalist. He was the headlining pay-per-views at a very young age. He was a champion very, very young. He was the one that women were talking about. Wives and daughters were talking about Oscar De La Hoya.
Women were coming to the fights.
Yes.
They were coming to the press conference. It was incredible.
Incredible. Yeah. So speaking of generational stars, Oscar was a generational star as a fighter, and then he's now a very successful promoter. And he's had a little bit of a lull recently. Right. But now, he is right back on top. Listen, regardless, he's got 3 major events in 3 back-to-back weekends, back-to-back-to-back. He had the Ryan Garcia, which actually worked out. He wins the majority decision. Last weekend he had Virgil and Ramirez. They both get their wins. Now he's got Cinco de Mayo weekend versus Canelo Alvarez, the face of boxing. Listen, with a win, forget it. It flips the sport on its head in terms of the promotions and who's in control of the money guys, who's got the controls of the faces of boxing. But listen, the Golden Boy's doing well right now. They got a lot of upside. And Munguia is a young guy. He's 27 years old. He's stepping up to fight the current face of boxing, even in a loss. There's still a lot of fight left in Munguia. So I think Golden Boy's in a very good position. But, man, a win over Canelo Alvarez, it's going to flip boxing on its head.
Yeah, Teddy, I got to ask you about that. To quote a great man, I'm not going to do the Ric Flair strut right here. To be the man, you got to beat the man. If Munguia does that, does he get those accolades from Mexican fans that Canelo currently has?
Yeah. It's not complicated. People make it complicated. It's a pretty simple formula. You beat the man who beat the man, you're the man. Yeah, it's not that complex. And look, we talking about the words that the 2 champions use, generational. I'll piggyback off that. In this generation, everyone likes the immediacy of things. Their attention span is not that long. It's about the immediate gratification today. Forget about what you did for me yesterday. Today, it's about today. Good or bad, that's the generation. Hey, he wins. Munguia is about today. The other guy's yesterday. He's got his legacy, he's got his greatness. Not taking that away from him. Can't. It's in the record books. But it's about today. And Munguia, he will be the man. He wins that fight. Especially all the fans, but the Mexican fans, wow. And the young Mexican fans, yeah, they will celebrate him. He will be, as the 2 champions said, he'll be the next, not just the next possible face of boxing, but definitely the man in Mexico. No doubt about that. And as far as Oscar De La Hoya goes, I'll just finish with this. You remember that movie, The Shining, with Jack Nicholson, when he stuck his head through the door? I had to put that one in there. I'm back.
Here's Johnny. That's what we're going to see. That's what he's going to say at some point. But everyone's looking for an advantage in this fight this weekend. But there's a wild card yet to be played. That's Freddy Roach. We'll discuss him when we come back. Welcome back to Deep Waters. We are discussing Cinco de Mayo weekend. Canelo versus Munguía. Freddy Roach, all-time great boxing coach. This guy who sent a cheesecake to Oscar De La Hoya while he was cutting weight for Manny Pacquiao. A lot of mind games. Hasn't pulled any yet. Gentlemen, will we see a more subdued Freddy Roach, or will he have something planned for Canelo Alvarez? Paulie, what do you think?
I think Freddie's a little bit older. He's not quite the star of the moment like he was in those days where he was playing all those mind games and he was a bit more hip to doing all those things. I think Freddie is sort of relishing the moment. He'll let Munguia possibly become the star, but him being sort of the mad scientist in the lab and creating the game plan. You know, obviously Canelo is the most popular fighter in boxing, so, you know, or has been at least for the past decade. And so you know, there's a lot to be known about him. And so a mad scientist like Freddie, who's got so much knowledge in the gym, is probably, you know, relishing the opportunity to come up with this game plan and this scheme to, you know, and put on Munguia and see if they can unseat the star of the moment. So I view it more so as that than anything else. The older Freddie would have gotten in there, but I mean the old Freddie, which was the younger Freddie.
The Freddie of a few years ago. Exactly.
Yeah.
Chris, what are your thoughts, man?
So I stood across the ring twice against Freddy Roach when I fought Ruslan Provodnikov and Manny Pacquiao. So even though Freddie might not be very vocal in the public, I bet you he is behind the scenes, because he certainly was with me. I remember he was telling all the media people, we were doing a batting practice with the San Francisco Giants, Pacquiao and I. And he was telling all the media, he was like, you believe this? This kid grew up in Long Island, never swung a baseball bat before, telling everybody I couldn't swing a baseball bat. Very first pitch, cracked in the middle of the outfield. I beat Manny in the home run contest, by the way. But yeah, no, Freddie, that's just the way he is, man. I don't care. Yeah, he's older, sure. He might not be as vocal out in public, but I'm sure every chance he gets, he's going to be digging. That's just the way he is. He likes to play those mental gymnastics with his opponents.
Teddy, do we see the mind games before this weekend?
Sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt me. I think that is that issue here. You know, the mind games, it's great. Ali, all the great ones, you know, play it, and sometimes it can have effect. But I don't think that plays here. It comes down to just the old-fashioned tangible stuff, the X's and O's. You know, who's got the better fight plan? You know, who is more mentally prepared, obviously physically, but technically for this fight, because it will come down to technical things. And the two champions were all over it. But, you know, you got a guy who doesn't have the greatest defense in Munguía. He's a work in progress. I said it. He's getting better. I hope he got a lot better, but he's getting better. But you better have a fight plan, because I mentioned it last week on our show. You can cover up some of those flaws in the defense, even though you haven't had enough time, and Freddie hasn't had enough time really to improve it in that kind of way tremendously on the inside. But you can take the fight onto the outside parameters and use your reach with Munguía, your longer reach, and use the jab, and not put yourself in position to test the defense so much. So I think it's going to come down to those kind of things much more than any of that stuff.
Much more than the mind games, it's the tactics, and we'll break them down all week here on ProBox TV. Deep Waters, we have you covered all week. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the fights this weekend.